It seems like Pokemon decided to sue Palworld, but is Nintendo Pikachuing more than they can chew? Hello there, how's it there? Ame Gakita desu. Alright, so it seems like for today's random chat is about Nintendo filing a lawsuit of infringement of patent right against Pocketpair. And I'm sure that a lot of people will have a lot of questions about what is the patent right issue, does it different from copyright, as well as that, in my view, why I think it may be more than what Nintendo should actually go for and why it may backfire on Nintendo, not just only on the short term, but maybe in the long term. So, just to verify on what is the difference between patent right and copyright, well, just to let you guys know that I'm just technically a VTuber, not a lawyer, but in the best layman term, after freaking hell read the whole article of patent law of Japan, or in Japan they love to call it Tokyo Ho, which also can be translated as special right rule. So the issue about the difference between patent right and copyright is that it's for patent is like, let's use baking a cake as an example. The baking of a cake, like the ingredients, what kind of temperature, what kind of amount of egg, that is the process, and the end product is the cake itself. So what differentiates between patent and copyright is that the process, the ingredient needed to make the cake, that is the process, and that fall under patent right. The end product of the cake itself is under copyright. So what differentiates between copyright and patent right is that it depends on what kind of situation that lead to it. So for example, if another baker make a cake, if the process is different from baking the cake, but the end product is still technically a cake, then that fall under copyright. But if the process is the same, but at the end product is not a cake, but let's say for example a bread, then that fall under patent right, because the ingredient and the process to make the end product may be different, but the process is the same, and that is the problem with patent right. So the reason why Nintendo decided to file a lawsuit against Pocketpair is that I would suggest you guys to take a look at Legal Mindset video for more clarification, because he's a lawyer, although he doesn't know more on patent right or the issue, but he did explain that there is a few issue about the patent right as well as all that. So link in the description if you guys are interested. But what we do need to understand why it may be an issue, and why I have to explain what is the problem with the patent right infringement by Pocketpair, is that what a lot of people may not be aware is that Nintendo had a lot of different patents, and it can come back to haunt them in a not a good way or in a bad way along the line, or even in the case that it may even get the audience of Nintendo to even backlash on the company. But the only issue is that what a lot of people may not be aware is that patent right is not wrong legally, because it also means that it's actually meant to protect the IP of a company or an individual. So in this case, the reason we like what Legal Mindset actually did mention in his video is that we do not know what kind of patent right that is being filed against Pocketpair. So in a way, unless we do know the full detail, it is still problematic. Now, here's the funny part about like based on a lot of information I come across, as well as stuff that the company are even indicating as, the only problem with that we let's say for example, if I from what I do come across, like even Power indicating that regarding the lawsuit they will be fighting for it along the line, but that Palworld software actually did a very good summary about what may be the cause of the infringement. So Nintendo filed a page on the regard about using a ball-like item to capture a monster. Take note, patent, as what Andrew-san mentioned, is always tend to be vague. It can tend to be very questionable, but that's how patent law go about. And if the patent office of the judge give it to so-called as a part of the invention, then that's the problem. The only issue is that remember this point. The Power Spear is similar to the Pokeball, which is basically using a ball-like mechanic to capture monster. Remember when I said about patent right, it doesn't matter whether the end product is the same or different, but if, as what I mentioned, using a ball-like object to capture a monster, if that is considered similar, then Nintendo has the right to file for a patent right infringement. But there is a problem with that on many levels, is that actually, as what Palworld Software also mentioned, is that number one, it was filed based on Japan timeline, that it was filed on December 2021, even though it was approved in November 2023. Now, for Palworld, it was announced on June 2021 and launched in 2024. Do Nintendo have the so-called right to sue Palworld? Technically, yes. I would suggest you guys to take a look at this comment. Assuming a very simple question is that assuming that company B get patent for exactly the same technology that company A had already been selling, then company B can still sue company A. But the only issue with that is that if A been selling before the patent is approved by B, then B will have a losing chance. So the issue stems from the timeline that when it was filed, when the company B got the patent, as well as that was company A announced the mechanic of what they want to do for the game before the filing of the specific patent. So here's the questionable part. The right technically the patent right was approved on 2023, but one thing a lot of people need to understand, after reading the patent act itself, I can definitely say that the issue with that is that even if Nintendo filed the case and got only approved on November 23, it is filed in December 2021. So the patent actually starts from exactly December 2021. So technically, Pokemon has the right to file for the infringement. The only issue is that if Power is able to so-called showcase that the mechanic behind the game was announced before the filing of December 2021, they can technically fight back with two strong evidence indicating that one, they have the mechanic being announced beforehand, and two, they can also sue Nintendo, seriously counter sue Nintendo for intention filing of a patent right. Because what a lot of people need to understand that ball-like object to catch up monster, this is not a first time invention in the first place. I'm sure that anyone and with full understanding is that the mechanic between using a ball-like object to capture a Pokemon is a very long standing between Pokemon. So even if Pokemon go with the idea saying that they have been using this as their so-called identity, is part of their IP, and it has been long since 1995, 97 that they come out with this idea, then it will not even stand. Patents start from when the time start and when the time was filed. So the thing is, right, even when Nintendo say that they have the IP, so-called identity, the IP for since 1997 or 1995, if they only filed the patent in 2021, that is only when it was filed. It will not consider that. And why it can be a problem for Nintendo is that what a lot of people may not be aware, the maximum lifespan of a patent right is 20 years. a maximum extension will only up to 25 years in total. But what Nintendo may not be aware is that if they filed the patent for using a ball-like object to capture a monster, this specific line, if that is being put up to the public domain, Nintendo will have no right to that. Yes, you heard me right. So basically understanding that the lifespan of patent itself, why I say that it may harm Nintendo in the long run in the future, is that in 2041 December, the full access right of using a ball to capture a monster will become a public information, and as well it will be put out in public domain. Meaning to say that Nintendo has no royalty, no right, as well as unable to sue anyone for the use of that specific object. So it means that if anyone in future, maybe in 2041, decided to create a game using a ball to capture cute pet, cute monster, cute bird, or cute whatever thing, or human along the line, Nintendo has no right to sue them, nor do they have the right to say that it's an infringement of right, because it had the so-called the patent itself had reached its maximum lifespan. The reason for such a reason, the why there is a lifespan for a patent, is that what Nintendo have failed to understand that patent right is only set to help protect the company temporary, to ensure that they get the lead among other competitors, as well as to ensure they are earning what they should earn, and then let the thing be public information. So maybe so my current prediction is that maybe somewhere in the future you'll get to see a lot of game that is like Pokemon but not Pokemon. And what a lot of people need to understand, the patent right itself, even if Nintendo want to indicate that using a ball to capture a monster is their IP, the only issue is that when the moment they file for the patent right, they are actually giving out for public they are giving out to the public in 20 years time. Even if they file for extension, at most in 2046, it will still be in public domain. So technically, this is what I always say: use a cannon and shoot at their own feet. And that is what Nintendo did at this point of time. So even if the lawsuit of Palworld go through, it is still technically what a lot of people need to understand, that Nintendo had actually not realized that in the long run they are hurting themselves, even if they claim that it is to protect in their words, protect the intellectual property that it had worked to establish over the year. Also, another funny thing is, right, even if they say that using a ball-like culture to capture a monster, if they claim they has been using this for who know how long when, especially like in 1995 or 1997, 20 years later, it's already over already. So in both ends, it seems like Nintendo will be, as what I would say, Pikachuing more than they can chew. Is that what a lot of people need to understand? Regardless of the timeline, if they go with 1995 to 1997, that they come up with the idea, the expiry is already long gone already. And even if they start out that, even if they try to fight it, the expiry date would have been in 2015, 2017. So Palworld technically, even if they announce in 2021, few years after that, they have the right to do so. And even in the case that Nintendo say that they claim they have the right, that so-called put out on 2021 December, and then kind of have it approved 2 years later. The only issue is that there is evidence to indicate that Palworld announced the game mechanic prior to the filing. So even if the date technically kind of like the launch of the game is launched after the approval of the patent law or the patent right itself, it's still a loss for Nintendo, because Palworld can just counter argument with that they have the mechanic down long beforehand, and that the patent was not informed. Because what a lot of people need to understand, that there is a few more things that Nintendo have to prove that they can win this, is that did they publicly announce the filing? There is two ways to go about it. They can, if a person file for a patent act or for their patent right, it can be under public or it can be announced anomalous. So if they announce it, then Power will be under the right to not, like, they will have ample time to not add the mechanic of using a ball to capture a monster. But if in the case that it was not announced for public interest, then under the patent right, there are ignorance of it, as well as that Nintendo have filed a patent with the intention to sue Power. So in a way, as what many people would actually say, and I believe that like as Andrew's son would definitely think, is that probably that Nintendo is suing the company with the intention to get money from Power, even if they didn't leave a single thing. So they are just basically they're just basically, in the most layman term, don't leave a finger and get the money in. So I know a lot of people will be saying that it's the most bested that can be done by Nintendo, but this is where I kind of like have to say, yes, it may also backfire on Nintendo, because what a lot of people need to understand that if the lawsuit do go through, a lot of people are going to be going against Nintendo, saying that Nintendo have been trying to monopolize a lot of things. Which is the reason why earlier when I mentioned that what Nintendo may not be aware is that patent right lasts 20 years. 20 years down the line, the information they have to give up, even if they try to claim it as theirs. The only issue with that is that if Nintendo tried to sue after 20 years, when someone come up with the same logic, like using a ball to, like I mentioned, capture a pet, capture a whatsoever, yes, Nintendo has no right. The only issue on that is that, as I mentioned, the reason why it may also be, like, a lot of people need to understand why Nintendo are also being hated for it, is that when I was looking through a lot of the patent that is assigned to Nintendo, mind you guys, there are quite a lot of things that the reason why like Sony couldn't do it, why Microsoft couldn't do it, is that it's actually understandable that Nintendo had the patent on themselves. So what a lot of people need to understand, that if people say that why did Sony or Microsoft couldn't come up with Nintendo Switch like game, or I mean the console, it was there already. And sample game controller is removal attached to a main unit. This, though vague, is referring to Nintendo Switch, and though it was filed in 2023, which is technically not the day that the Nintendo Switch was created, but it was technically referring to Nintendo Switch, and that on its own mean that Sony and Microsoft had no right to create a Nintendo Switch like game console. So obviously, well bested, it is gonna get a lot of people saying that Nintendo is trying to create monopolize within it, and that's the reason why patent law in the first place actually may end up hurting Nintendo in the long run, because patent law have a lifespan of 20 years, like I mentioned earlier. So 20 years down the line, the right will be put out for public domain, meaning to say that if Nintendo try to sue, they have no right, and that at the same time anyone can use it. So the patent law lifespan is actually, in the most simple term, to prevent monopolized by a company or an individual for whoever whatsoever reason. So in a way, to me, I think that this whole ordeal, if it actually do go through, technically Nintendo is just shooting themselves in their foot with a freaking cannon, and people are going to take a look. Is the case that they are going, like, what kind of patent they are going to file for? And I do agree with Andrew San on many end legal mindset. Like, his point of view was that we need to understand what kind of patent right that is being filed. And considering there is a lot of mechanical by Nintendo in terms of game mechanic, so technically it can be just not a ball-like culture to catch a Pokemon, or to catch a monster, or power, or whatever you want to call it. The only issue is that excuse me. The only issue is that depending on what kind of patent right is being filed, the only issue is, like, I have to tell you guys, is that if other game company has the same infringement based on the patent, then that specific patent can be considered invalid because it means that other company had done the same. But though Nintendo can claim that the so-called that the other company have so-called put out a licensing fee to use the patent, but the only issue what a lot of people need to understand on patent right itself is that depending on the patent description, which is considered very questionable. If a lot of the infringement that being put out is considered questionable by the public, then I think Nintendo will be just basically shooting themselves and just admitting that they just basically patent every single thing. I mean, like like from what I hear, although allegation that they try to patent the right for Mario, the one where you can jump on the platform over a game mechanic, which was apparently rejected, and because it was too vague or along the line, who knows. But the thing is, right, patent is just basically the process of making the thing. So in a way, if they do file it 20 years down the line, Nintendo is going to give out that right. They have to give out the right. They have no, they can't keep it anymore. It will be about, like similar to how Mickey Mouse and Winnie the Pooh, the very classic one that was being put out on public domain. So a lot of people need to understand that the moment the lifespan of a patent ad is ended, or if Nintendo fail to pay the fee, then any game can use a baller culture to capture anything. Which is the reason why I say that Nintendo just freaking got themselves in trouble in the long run, even if they try to fight for that they hold the right. But hey, that's just all my speculative thought, just a random chat. I know you guys may think that I'm just kind of yapping on this and whatnot, but at the end of the day, what we do need to understand that technically the lawsuit against Palworld may end up hurting on Nintendo, and that's how I feel. But at the same time, like I mentioned, the timeline seems to indicate that if Nintendo tried to sue Pocketpair, the timeline that for Nintendo to, in order to win, is to indicate that they can try to fight that, hey, they have the same mechanic, but in terms of the timeline, like I mentioned, 20 years by then is already over. And even if they try to file it now, the announcement of Palworld can actually overtake everything. So in every single way, Nintendo have the weaker point, and technically Nintendo may lose. So even if they sue, they can still lose, and that would be the worst outcome for Nintendo, because not only do that happen, it can also mean that the patent itself may become invalid, become invalid. Okay, but at the same time, Palworld can also still lose, because technically they did try to create something like Pokemon with intention. If Nintendo is able to claim it as such, but only time will tell, only thing will tell. But at the same time, what I do want to let you guys know that at the end of the day, do you guys think that Nintendo chew more than they chew, or because they really go with the Pikachu along the line? But who knows? Just write in the comment section below and we can discuss it further. But till then, if you do like this video, don't forget to press the like button and subscribe for more random chat where I talk about stuff that sometimes makes sense, doesn't make sense, or sometimes totally random at times. But the one thing that is not random is I hope you guys have a nice day or night. Bye.